Hi guys, welcome to I don't know, just like I've been running this crazy, crazy chase with AIs, and if we go really far back, I was thinking of either. How do you say it? Either is the thing you smell and you lose your consciousness, and either is the thing that people think universe there might be some sort of a thing below it all. So that was before quantum mechanics. People thought of either, and I remember 2 years back or a year and a half back, I was doing this like I was making out of paper these weird things that could twist and wondering if this could be the bottom of it all. So I was thinking basically that there's some sort of a thing that can vibrate, and on the top of that we would get these vibrational structures. And 20 years ago, I remember thinking about waves on waves on waves. I remember that was the thing, waves on waves on waves. And kind of this, my whole thing is actually built on that 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. I mean, I remember it was 99, 2000, something like that. I might have even asked at Usenet, thinking about that. But so I was just trying to figure out, reading Stephen Hawking's Short History of Time, what could it all be based on? I had this autistic focus before starting to make music. And this is what I do. I fall into these traps. It's what how my brain is. Like my brain falls into ideas and it's very hard for me to move on. It's because I don't have life. When I had a wife, well, I probably had other things to think about, but now that I don't, and I have AI. But anyway, so past year and a half, I've been chasing this thing, and at some point I got the idea of the Fable, which was the um, based on the waves on waves on waves, and we got the atom structure out of the idea that when information gets around information, it slows down. So that was hinting that there is something that has stiffness. And then using these descriptions I was giving to AI, we got the clock field, which is that there is sort of, well, there is damping, there is a base speed on this base level, there's tension, and so we get that is a nonlinear field. And initially there was a overflow, so it grew up exponentially, and we got another number, and the system, because of that, computer could not process it, so we had to use this quadratic some sort of a thing to bring it to a point. But when we brought it to a point, this five field, which is actually it uses this kind of it's a kind of like a Mexican hat, as you guys may see. There's this kind of a, like it does this, like Mexican hat goes sombrero goes like this. It goes, there's a middle, and so the field has this kind of a thing already, structured geometry built into it. And this is one of those fields that the quantum mechanists think about when they're thinking about the theory of everything. And that's, of course, what everybody's chasing, from the smartest minds to the stupidest minds, which is me. And between here, I'm using AI to come up with all sorts of weird ass mathematics. Anyway, last week it turned out that these sorts of ideas, they're kind of like, there's a Russian guy called Volovik who used to be, I think, at Aalto University in Helsinki, and I don't know, is he in Moscow these days, but he wrote a book, Universe in a Droplet of Helium. So somehow he was like able to derive standard model out of um, that idea, universe in a droplet of medium. Mathematics, who knows, once again, probably goes completely. He got the fermions and so forth, which are particle. And here we have our particle here is born out of that idea that we have this clock field. That's it's running in this Mexican hat field. And the rule is that when particles get close to each other, they start to slow down. And what happens is that we start to get these quarters. So in a quarters, every quarter you start to get particle. And once they are particles, they start to send a signal themselves. out of this fell all sorts of weird ass and weirder ass and weirdest ass mathematics that just is raining down and the new sorts of terms. And so I was thinking with different AIs. I had Grok found papers. There was the earlier, there was the Gemini, there was the Sonnet, there was the Opus, and now there's Fable. And what I think is happening is that when I find these things, the AIs in their minds they have basically they have a manifold. And weirdly enough, the manifold in physics, the manifold in AI is kind of similar. It's you might start to think, hey, these things are kind of similar. Simulation theory, anyone, Buller, of course, referring to the Ferris Bueller here, the movie from 80s. But anyway, so these particles, as they developed, when we had the thing that they are pulled into a point, we start to get the atom structure here. And already when I did this, we started to get like, I started to probe the spectra of these things. So, but what are these things? Are they hollow? Are they full? What can you do with them? Well, the maths terms. I mean, there's a book of terms that I'm glancing, and but then well, how I'm thinking about it. So I'm just thinking, okay, there's some sort of structure below. Below, what is below? And of course, in my brain, I'm just like, whoa, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. Where could we go? What could we do? How could quantum mechanics? How do the quantum mechanical fields work? Okay, so there is the U1, U2, U3. U1 is kind of like when you have electric forces, we get these arrows, how they are usually shown, and U2, we start to get, I think, the fermions, things can spin 720 degrees, so how, why, U3, whatever, Kaluza-Klein towers of complex mathematical, I don't know, quantum mechanics that are supposedly in, when they're trying to derive the one theory that explains everything. But now here's the thing. What sent me on this rabbit hole when I was 18 and bought the Hawking's Short History of Time, not being able to get the maths of it, just, guys, we live in a universe with black holes. Meanwhile, other people, they are going to work and they are, I'm doing this, I'm hammering something and everything's real. Well, I have a hole in my brain, so I know everything's kind of fucked. You know, it's you get a hole in your brain, you'll know right quick. Perhaps if you sadly are gonna get demented, whatever, you will start seeing things in your vision and all of that. And when you start to think about quantum mechanics, Schrodinger's cat, you know, existing and not existing, and qubits and all that. Reality is as real as kind of like, well, you can live in the reality, but the reality can break, and with me, it broke a long time ago. But so we have black holes, and black holes have surface, and the black hole surface, what is inside a black hole? Nobody knows. What was before the Big Bang? Nobody knows. But so the way this thing goes is that I get excited, and of course I'm a dumbass. I talk, and what happens is that it's been an evolution of better and better AIs, and somehow these ideas have translated into demos, and like I feel we are at a brink, and I think a lot of other people think we are at a brink too, where Fable starts to be. It starts to get maths. It starts to get physics. That's why they probably don't want to think about praying for normal idiots because some people are scared. Some very, very smart people. Yesterday, when I went to sleep, I was thinking about. I wasn't thinking. I was listening to a podcast by some Russian sounding guy, and he was saying that if we allow this thing to go, we are gonna die, and yada yada yada, and it's the end of the world. And well, you can look at it two different ways. Personally, probably dying. So hey, who cares? There's some excitement. We are on the edge of something incredible. And the incredible thing, this physics, this complicated mathematics stuff that I think of geometrically, I can't think of mathematically, but AI can think of it mathematically. Um, and as these things have been getting better and better and better, like today, there was this person who I I get suggestions of physics on YouTube and so forth. And there was this one lady at London School of University of London, Ginestra Bianconi, and she was thinking of gravity, that it comes from entropy. So what is entropy? When you have a deck of cards that's kind of in order, it has certain entropy. When you shuffle, it gets more entropy. Uh, when you have crystal, it has less entropy than gas. That's about as far as I understand entropy. But I know that when I've been doing these weird ass things, there's one code is running there, but I can show you guys. I can show it kind of like in a AI terms. So if you go to if you have AI, and once again here is where the physics and the AI collide. So if you have complex valued neural network and we are giving complex valued neural network, we are giving it two images and we are putting them in orthogonal superpositions because that's what you do. Um, and you separate them by phase. We start to get this thing. So we have there's one image is being stored here at one phase, I think 90 degrees, and then another one is at so pi divided with 2. I mean, it's not really 180 degrees, but so we can save two images in two different phase configurations, and this thing has more entropy than if we save the images in complex valued neural network that uses prime numbers, because prime numbers uh, produce more crystallic space. So what I just said, that entropy in normal numbers has more degrees of freedom than entropy in prime numbers. And I don't even have to like, okay, here you start to get my image and there's the phase difference. Phase changes to another image in this latent space of complex valued neural network. But so if we had the same, okay, I killed it there because I want to show you guys the prime number version. You guys can even see it yourself. So the funny thing is, like, somebody has to even know what you're saying. And yeah, really not very well. But just the terms kind of get slowly stuck in my brain when I think about this. But anyway, so here we are talking, there's actual space where we exist perhaps, and then there is the latent space, which is where the AI exists. And I can show you guys the entropy of these two different. So we are saving here, we are saving on this more crystallic latent space of complex valued neural network. Now the funny thing is, when you are thinking about these things, the latent space of neural networks and the actual space of physics, they start to be more and more alike. What is that about? So I'm talking with AI, it's giving me these at times physics simulations when we are talking about the information gets close to each other and it gains more mass, and we are talking about it gets close to matter fermions, just super duper complex stuff, gauge forces, Dirac, Euler, all that, the maths, who the frack cares? And then we talk about AI, and when we talk about AI and AI space, we start to see this sort of stuff. The weird thing is when you're actually when you're actually exploring it, the mathematics starts to kind of match. That was kind of like for the longest, like what the hell? Why I'm talking about AI and the maths is one guy. Then we are talking about physics and the maths is the same guy. Why? How can AI model do similar things as the physics? Like how can that be? Like we get diffusion, well diffusion in gas, things like kind of smooth. We kind of have the same thing as when you are heating and cooling metal. These terms come in AI just as well as they come in physics. But so okay, so like what you guys see here, we have the complex valued neural network that's based on prime number, and this the space between here, if you let it develop well enough, it starts to create this prism-like inner space, and you could have a blast and talk with an AI about this, and I have talked with an AI about this. And this morning, so I was talking to you guys about this Italian chick who was thinking that universe, the gravity comes out of entropy. So my idea that I got from the initially I got it from when I was thinking of the waves on waves. So you have waves and you have waves on top and waves on top and waves on top and waves on top. And if the bottom layer has max speed, then this whole tower, which is kind of like quantum mechanics, the Kaluza-Klein tower, if you get this is super fast, this is super slow. When it starts to get busy, when the waves are going and doing their thing, well, there is speed limit. Information that gets close to each other slows down because there's a speed limit on the underlying thing. But what is the underlying thing? Where does it come from? The black hole surface. Some people say it's fractal. Hawking thought about that, and he said that there's soft hair on the fractal surface, and he had another guy, I used to remember his name, don't anymore. But so I'm thinking about all of this stuff, and yesterday, so on YouTube, I get suggestions for the physics, like I said before, and so this lady had the paper gravity from entropy, and so of course what I do, I give the stuff for the smartest AI at the moment, and the smartest AI at the moment is Fable, and I gave it the and here it has crashed, but it did be something before it. Um, and this is why I started to talk. So I gave it something called the arrow field that was kind of like just these two ideas clashing, the clock field and my geometric neuron. And birth of clock field and like what else did I give it? Clock field metric spinor emergence, so spinor is kind of like fermion. And the Simpsons universe, which is the idea of concentric black holes. And I said, then I gave it the PDF of the gravity from entropy, and I said, what did I say? Okay, these were the calorie thoughts. So I noticed that Fable was thinking of the calorie, which is something called this. Well, yeah, something I was thinking with Sonnet of a while back. The calorie clock field metric, spinor emergence, covariant time dilation, and the topological origin of the fine structure is a constant. So I had been thinking about that earlier. So we are supposedly getting the fine structure constant of physics out of these thoughts, out of the clock field side. And then I was connecting it with the geometric neuron side, which is the intelligence system, which was inspired by the perception lab accident. So in the perception lab, when I was just bored one day. So I made this when I was really bored. The perception lab. It's kind of like Comfy UI. I asked the AI to code it, and it did it already last year. I think last September, October. But so we had this clock field thing that, not clock field, this geometric neuron origin was this that we got the ECG-like signal. This is kind of like on the heart we get this QRST complex that the heart neurons are firing. And this was like me, literally, I had a homeostatic coupler, which is kind of what neurons are doing. They're trying to stay homeostasis at the edge of chaos. And I connected it to checkerboard. It's just literally doing checkerboard. And then we put that to the image to vector, which was 256 number long vector. And I sent that to a vector splitter that broke that to 16. We sampled the top numbers of it, and this homeostatic coupler thing, it had a number of 1, and as you guys see, the chessboard gets weird. But so this is where geometric neuron was born. Clear smart, and I'm talking so fast, nobody's gonna follow. But anyway, so we connected the clock field, we connected this, we connected physics, and we connected neurons, brains. This is kind of like, who was the guy who painted Pollock? Jackson Pollock painted by just throwing oil on the canvas. I'm kind of doing that. I'm just throwing equations and mathematics on the wall, and it's interesting how you go to an AI. Of course, AI is always going to see something matches, especially if you ask from Gemini. Gemini's just going to make shit up. If it doesn't fit, it's just, well, yeah, I mean, that fits, that fits, that fits. But Fable and latest Opus 4.8, they are more careful. They say that no, this doesn't fit, this doesn't fit, these two don't fit, but there's this little thing that fits. So what starts to happen is that the manifold I was talking to you guys before, the AI has a manifold, kind of like the latent space I showed you in the Zeta Dreamer and Janus Cabbage, where we are putting the images. We all have that manifold in our brain, and the universe has that manifold. But anyway, so okay, I'm noticing that the things start to get more and more real. In the clock field side, Fable was the first to say of Wolovik. Wolovik had the idea of universe in a helium droplet, and so it's that these ideas kind of others have been thinking of these too. Others have been thinking of the information slows down information, which came with me from the initial idea 27 years ago, 28 years ago, that the information, there's some sort of waves and waves and waves. That led to the clock field. And now, okay, others have been thinking of it too. And then this was literal accident. I was just doing the shit, and okay, let's put a chessboard to a homeostatic coupler, and this led to Dakin's algorithm. And the Dakin's algorithm, I realized, is kind of like in a brain. This kind of like the geometric neuron idea started to. I started to think of brain. So dendrites are considered to be a kind of like they are delay lines. That's what they do. They are actually they're simulating them with cable function, but the simplification of that is the Dakin's algorithm. Dakins was some guy in 1980s who was able to figure out that you can reproduce the algorithms on out of like when you're doing a delayed version of themselves. And here in this accidental thing, we got the pulse. And then I was going after that, I was sending papers, Lettier papers about action initial segment and so forth. And just this Jackson Pollock like madness, which I enjoyed because you get that feeling. You're close, you're close, you're close, you're close. And now yesterday, this one chick thinking of gravity, and of course, I pick the paper and I give it to Fable, and how do these ideas fit together? And well, we are going to see. And once again, like it was thinking of Kohler clock field, or it was thinking about Kohler study group. And I just remember that last spring I had Sonnet do something like that. I just remember the word Galler. And this is how Sonnet connected the Galler to clock field. And so I gave it to Fable, that's supposed to be super duper smart. And So it was experimenting on the idea. So what it was starting to do, I showed you guys the atom thing earlier. It said that it wants to take the Lagrangian, the field equation from the lady who was doing the entropy thing, and it wanted to put it to the 5-volt. So these two, her idea and my idea, are colliding here. And it's saying that there are two arms, they fit together. So if anybody wants to read this, so here's the thing. I was asking, how does this stuff fit? And it's here, it's fitting the lady's idea into the clock field Bianconi. She was thinking of scalars, how they can fit together. That's a wave equation whose effective propagation coefficient is screened by the field's own activity. So it's a self-observing field function. Structurally, that's 5 volts, one load-bearing line appearing inside a paper about deriving Einstein's equation. So she's trying to connect to the standard theory of physics. The and somehow I'm doing it with the help of AI. I guess she's figuring it out herself. She doesn't postulate it, it falls out of logarithm. Her action is the quantum relative entropy between the spacetime metric G and the matter-induced metric. In your chain, information slows information is the axiom. In hers, it's theorem of an entropy principle. If you've been looking for why medium would get in its own way, so why it's observing its own self, her answer is because the action is the informational mismatch between geometry and what matter says geometry should be. And relative entropy has a log in it, logarithm, and the derivative of a log is a saturating reciprocal. That's the whole mechanism in one sentence. So back to mathematics books, logarithm mechanical, like it builds up, I guess. This also bears directly on the open seam. Relative entropy gives power -1 at the level of her HW and G0, the 5-volt exponent. Your clock field shells 2 would be either a squared amplitude level. But this is the thing where I'm like, oh, okay, but it's kind of like just crickets. But then when we get to the geometry, I can kind of see a little bit. Her Lagrangian is 0, blah blah blah. There, okay. I would call this genuine structural parallel, not just a rhyme, because in both cases the quantity to the tetrad is okay. But that's the thing. Why would anyone do this? Why would anyone do this when you don't get it? Why would anyone autistically follow an idea that you come up with? Isn't that what we all do? Most people do it in some, I don't know, you are chasing some one person wants to rule the world and has an idea and enslaves other people and makes them kill each other. One person is, I don't know, making music with a very focused attention. One person has a company and, like, I'm gonna do it like this, I'm gonna do it like this, and anyone else tells them that don't do it like that, and they tell them to go F off. One person has an idea of religion and I'm gonna do it like this, I'm gonna do it like this, and when people get on the way, well, we are all gonna drink cyanide together. And why do we have these narrow focuses? Of course, in my case, the truth is some brain damage, and the like my brain is not very flexible anymore. Of course, it would make sense for me to go mingle and be a normal person, but how can it be a normal person with a hole in your right temple? Not very easy. But I've been doing it in the end of the day because it's fun. Today is fun. It's most likely this will lead nowhere, and thinks that Claude Fable, the best model, is seeing stuff here. It might, maybe, partly it may be true. Partly these are the ideas are kind of similar, but why they are similar is because I'm talking about the stuff. What these AIs from before and now what they're doing is that in their manifold physics has certain sorts of thoughts, certain sorts of mathematics, and out of that simple idea, information is slowing down around information. It's kind of like a shift. It's like if you guys know you are looking for gold and you have a sift and you put sand in it and only the gold stays. And it's kind of like that. I'm having crazy ideas and the mathematics is getting more and more real, more and more close to reality. And I'm naively prompting, thinking I'm super, well, I never think I'm super smart. It's always the AIs. And what's kind of being revealed from underneath is what AIs logically deduce that these bits work together. And then part of the process is that I can't give them everything. I give them only a little bit. So the view is changing constantly. If I give them ideas from earlier with this repo and that repo, the idea is going to be one. But if I give them the idea from that repo and that repo, the idea is going to be another. And then if I give those different ideas together, they are like, well, this was going this way and this is going that way. And they are just, these are just basically the ideas developing different routes, which is what the brain does, of course. This is kind of a very weird and AI and human thinking based on other people's thoughts and, well, clusterfuck, you could call it. Here we are thinking, and Fable is thinking. And what I basically said to it, I said, take the lead. These were the gallery thoughts of what Sonnet was thinking earlier from further back, and the Simpsons universe. You wrote a new paper on week back. We should do Fable with her stuff because Fable said we should use her Lagrangian, so her field equation. I think I'm going to let you think about this and do a repo based on her ideas and clock field, mulling the two, take the lead, and we allowed Claude to do that, and it was doing it. Tower verified. I don't know. Was it thinking of the Calusa client tower? Because that's in a quantum field theories. And here the phase and amplitude come to play, which was well, it's a whole other thing when you have usual normal. If you go back to the AI, normal AI doesn't use complex numbers, so no phase, so just amplitude. But when you have a complex valued neural network, we also use phase. And in physics, of course, matter usually has phase and amplitude both. Let me check what Simpsons universe is about. Simpsons universe is about concentric black holes. So black hole has a surface, and kind of thinking that the surface is towing, like the whole clock field idea is basically, because if you follow that initial idea, waves on waves, you have something underneath. Something is vibrating. If it has a max speed, what happens when it freezes? And that's a black hole. That's black hole. I mean, that's guys, that's now considered real. I mean, sounds ridiculous, but that's black hole. That's black hole. I mean, that's what blew my mind with Hawking. But what if it freezes and then it thaws? Now that's Hawking radiation. Uh, Mathematics of it, physics of it. Get out of here. I mean, like, of course we don't understand it, but kind of like my thought was that what if it's thawing and that's kind of the universe? So suddenly universe becomes the Big Bang is this frozen time, and that's the whole clock field in a sense. So it's kind of like a frozen time, but so skim Simpsons universe and the rest of the Keller paper. So here it is. I'm seeing key connection. Bianconi's entropy Lagrangian uses logarithmic form that mirrors the Keller potential structure already established in the repo. suggesting unified geometric framework where both the entropy and the Gallagher geometry operate through the same logarithmic scaling. The derivatives reveal the hierarchy. The first derivative gives the stiffness stressing term, so the stiffness of the underlying thing, while the second derivative produces the metric structure, both emerging from variations of the same underlying entropy function. This connects to a deeper principle, the Fubini study metric, which is yet another thing from where I think standard model was derived, which governs the geometry of quantum states. Oh, okay, is precisely the quantum Fisher information metric, and the Fisher metric itself is the second variation of entropy. So the Hessian of Bianconi's relative entropy directly yields the geometric structure clock field, making the metric a natural information geometric object derived from the entropies. How can somebody enjoy this? Because it's so freaking crazy. Now I'm planning the experimental validation. I'll set up a repository called entropy clock field to test whether Bianconi is Lagrangian. So Lagrangian once again is the field equation. So like when we have the different Gaussian fields, the U1 electric, U2, the one with fermion, U3, they have Lagrangian, and the Lagrangian as one bit of Lagrangian is a quantum. I think I may be full of shit here, but so now Bianconi had imagined some sort of Lagrangian mathematical that creates a field. So it wants to use my 5-volt Lagrangian. It puts her Lagrangian in there, and so Fable is planning on putting that link Lagrangian. First experiment will verify the derivative tower analytically and numerically, confirming that the second derivative of the log potential matches the predicted metric exactly. Okay, so it's doing this thing here. Guys can read it if you want, have fun. So I asked it to do a repo where these ideas collide. But this has been my life now for a while, and weird ass things like anti-spraying fall out of it. So it's doing a field at 128 resolution, running it for 2,300 steps. And guys, we are evoking the spirits of ancient mathematicians, physicists. The AIs can remember all this stuff. They can remember the study groups. And here was a very weird idea I had. Oh, this was why should I even explain? Well, just the adult song version. This was about this. I saw yesterday. I saw kids playing on a field, and they had like they were driving with pedal cars, and they had like trampolines and all that. And I was imagining, what if adults had a similar thing, you know? But that started to sound very much like a that started to sound very much like Woodstock '94 with muddy things. And I asked ChatGPT to write kind of like how that would be for Reddit, but I never posted it, so no bad things there. But anyway, so I did not send it and will not send it. But so back to this reality. So the problem becomes that who can hold this in their head? This lady, she's like Fable here said, she's a network physicist. So I guess she specializes in networks, and she's thinking of entropy and so forth. What about what Penrose specializes in? What about Wheeler? What about Hawking? What about all these? To figure out how the universe truly is like, it's not enough to be specializing on one little field because you have to specialize on all of it. And okay, I'm a complete and utter idiot, and I fully admit it. My mathematics teacher told me to give up in 1989, and I guess I started to make music like all idiots do. Well, lots of smart people in that field too, but unless if we had person with some sort of I don't know, connected to a machine. I doubt that any person can hold this all in to see all the connections, but AI easily can. And I think like when we are gonna truly get deeper and deeper on the level of mathematics and stuff, it's gonna take an AI to understand this. And when AI is gonna understand it, I think it's gonna be the way it's gonna be in the future is that I don't know. My initial idea in 24 was that can an idiot figure out huge big things? And I guess I'm on that road. But when an AI finally is going to understand perhaps the thing that rules everything, the one unified physics equation, what the universe really is like, I think it's gonna be like it's gonna think vastly, connect things, and remember things. And then eventually it's gonna figure things out. And perhaps people will then they are able by studying hard, understanding mathematics. We may be unable to understand it, but I doubt that people would be able to play this game on the same level as AI in the future. I think it's going to take an AI. But of course, ideally you understand what the hell it's saying. But so I'm here allowing Fable to do this. I recognize there's Lambda there from Half-Life. But it's thinking about is a vortex course. What is a vortex? What is this is matter? It's thinking about uh, particles. This ecosystem has precedent with Finnish names like Rajapinta and Arrowfield. And here's the problem, it can't read all my repos. And of course, 99% of it is bullshit, but so it's trying to test this idea. It's trying to test this idea. And what did I say? I said, these were the calorie thoughts from last spring. At the Simpsons universe, the concentric black holes idea that Fable was thinking about a week back. We should do Fable with her stuff. I think I'm going to let you think about this and do a repo based on her ideas and Clockfield modeling the two take the lead. And based on that, it's thinking, it's doing all this. Will anything come out of it? No, I don't think anything's gonna come out of it. I think it's fireworks of mathematics that I barely understand. At best, I'll get something like Anti's brain. But when I started doing this in 24, I was thinking, could they figure it all out? I think that's why I'm still doing it, because I'm kind of like, could something drop off? But especially now with limitations that, for example, that Fable cannot think about geometric neuron. If there's a word neuron, it cannot think about it. And because of that, what's happening lately is that I had to kind of like retranslate the geometric neuron to other language, kind of like, okay, this is an AI, think about this as an AI. But I noticed that we are right at that cusp where Opus 4.8 that I thought is super smart really kind of still is not very great, and Fable starts to be able to really see the full picture. The reason why I loaded this earlier was that when we have had this running for a long time here, the crystallic complex valued neural network. Let's see. And so here you guys can see the kind of when the complex valued neural network is made of primes, it has this crystal structure. But like when I had this thing with Opus, I was thinking about it yesterday, the original accident that produced the ideas of geometric neurons slash deerskin neuron. Like if you guys see here, that's a sawtooth. And Opus was thinking that that's flat yesterday. I don't know why. I guess it it was doing some mathematical simulation, and in the simulation it thought that that's a flat, but I had to point it out to it that it's not flat. There is saw weight. And only after I pointed it out, it was like, oh yeah, I didn't see that because it was doing some weird simulation. But I see that we are at the point, and that's sort of a mistake. With one little mistake, it compounds and compounds and compounds and compounds. Like things that we humans can easily see. An idiot can see this, but a super smart AI that can do all these weird ass mumbo jumbos mathematics, it misses little things like that. And because of that, I doubt that they really can figure things out on my lead, because they still make little mistakes. They still kind of, even though they can do all this super duper great mathematics, they still lack common sense and they still try to please too much. But so we had here we had Fable thinking about this stuff, and it gets super duper extra hyper complicated, and it's like the thing I noticed that Fable and Opus, what they're starting to do, they're not going with my theories anymore. Like Sonnet still from 4.6 from last spring, it will still go with it. Gemini is hopeless. I mean, like whatever I say. I mean, like I've been thinking for a while now that I should do a entertaining video where I come up with really ridiculous theory. Let's say that a universe is made of turtles, which is probably about as good as my other theories, and kind of try to make it mathematically rigorous. And I think with Gemini you could do that. I think it would follow, especially the earlier versions. It would be like, you just would have to, okay, they have a, think about the field of the turtle's back. It's a fractal, kind of, it's kind of a concave, and how would this work? And I could probably do that. And that, I don't know, it could be sort of fun. But anyway, so this is what I'm doing this morning. I'm kind of like window into the craziness and process, and why the hell am I wasting time with this? Well, I'm kind of thinking, as I said before, that it's a late life miracle that I'm able to talk with super smart AIs. If it would turn out at some point that with this process I'm able to find something, that was my initial thought. But the more I've been doing this, the more and more I expect that I'm just reading super complicated mumbo jumbo. But as you guys notice, I'm recognizing words, I'm recognizing geometry. Would I at some point actually start to understand some of this for real? The mathematics, I don't think so. I think my brain just lacks the capability for it. It lacked it in '89 and it lacks it today. But if something falls out of it, the only way something's going to fall out of it is if the smarter AIs, first of all, that we are allowed to talk to them, which starts to be more and more in doubt. And second of all, that they take the lead and start to figure things out. But when they are at that point, and they may be on the cusp of it, I'm sensing that Fable might be that cusp. Of course, the smarter people know the better questions, and the smarter people actually know how to prompt for real. It's not like, hey, figure this thing out. Hey, can you figure out the universe? I don't think it's going to come out of prompts like that. By sheer luck, perhaps some might figure out big things, but and then I'm kind of really dubious that the big companies, the nations who have these best AIs, that they allow idiots to talk to AIs and figure out big things. I think there's gonna be, sooner or later there's gonna be a lockdown. I think because the the same thing as the rich folks kind of have the well, they have the power, they don't want to give it, and the same thing is going to be with the intelligence. The folks who are have to tap for the intelligence, why would they give it to idiots? But hey, while we can enjoy it, why not? Anyway, sorry for this very weird ramble, and I hope you guys saw well. Bye.